Hi, everybody. Good Monday morning. It's time to talk about the markets with Jim Cramer right here on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange. And Jim, we'll get to the markets in a moment, but first, El Monstro.
El Monstro. Yeah, bucket list. I know that the earnings were big last week, and I booked this a year ago without knowing what the earnings calendar was. And obviously, when you're off a decommissioned rig, 99B, in the Gulf of Mexico, 50 miles offshore with no ability to be able to make a phone call from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., it is difficult. But yeah, this was a bucket list dream of mine. I wanted to be able to go into the Tarpon Rodeo, which is the oldest fishing derby in the country, started 90 years ago. And I wanted to do it before I was too old and not strong enough to try to rope in a 7-foot black tip shark, which of course I threw back. I have pictures of the red snappers that you're not allowed to keep. We're allowed to keep a couple good eating fish, but the main thing that happened is our boat. We caught the winning white trout, and there's a bunch of categories, but ours was the winner. I'll post some pictures of fish later today, just in terms of what I've got tons of pictures, obviously, but it was a dream come true, and I think it was the most exciting sporting event I've ever had, other than, of course, the Eagles Super Bowl. And we had a fantastic crew and a great group of people. And I want to recommend this to any angler out there. If you really want to put yourself to the test, right today, start booking these houses are on stilts right on the beach, beautiful beach, and then book a captain. May I suggest the Charisse? With Captain Rice, and it is monumental, exhilarating, amazing beauty, fishing off of rigs. Again, the rigs are where all the coral reefs are, so you have a lot of just these ghost rigs, which are very frightening, frankly. There's giant hulking masses, and you, when you put the line down, the fish bite while the line goes down. So every time, literally, it's a magic gulf. Every time if you were off of 99B, as we were for 4 hours, every time you put the line down, you caught a giant fish. And I think that the fishermen, I know there's a lot of fishermen watch me and follow me on Twitter. This is it, guys. This is the best in the world. Off of Grand Isle is the best fishing in the world. And I have fished in a lot of places around the world. This is it.
So your wife posted a video of that shark swirling around.
Bringing in El Monstro.
Wow.
El Monstro took about 45 minutes. I stopped after El Monstro. I was just too exhausted. I just lay down and fell asleep. I've never fought a fish like that. And what we had to do was, Bob, who was our mate, he would lift up the pole, and then I would reel down. Lift, reel down. And when I hit, what happened is, it's a really interesting fish story. When I hit, there was a red snapper, and you can tell exactly how heavy a red snapper is, and they're about this big. And I was reeling it in, and then boom! I thought I had caught the leg of the oil rig, but then my line flew out and flew out and flew out, and that's what a shark does. And sharks are incredibly powerful. My wingspan is not big enough to describe it. And I'd never had the kind of proverbial fish where you need a bigger boat. But the line just kept getting taken out and taken out and taken out. And then finally I was able to battle it and battle it and battle it. And now these are all catch and release, and we don't hurt the fish. But it was, again, anyone who fishes, and I've been in fishing tournaments. This is my 5th fishing tournament. There's nothing like it. It's the best there is.
All right, well, Jim, congrats on the first prize win, and we're glad you're back.
For white trout.
Because the market's this morning not really doing much. You read a real money.
The NASDAQ obviously is falling apart again, and people are completely mystified, as I mentioned, real money, like what really works. And the cloud kings go down today because even though the cloud is really connected with commerce, as is Adobe, I think people just say there's a dramatic slowdown in social media, and social media is the be-all and end-all of the cloud. I would completely disagree with that. The Internet of Things is, but there's a radical revaluation. People saying, you know what, let's get out of these. They're all connected via ETFs. So you have to try to figure out at what point it's overdone. I believe it got overdone today, but also, as I wrote in Real Money, people don't know. They don't know what to do. They want to buy Caterpillar, then Caterpillar says there are issues, and I knew it. I tried to tell people early on the cat is a problem. They want to then own the soft goods stocks, but there's a downgrade. Colgate that is very negative. They want to own the transports. Well, people start huddling in the transports because they're down and out and washed out, and they want to own the banks because, as I predicted, when the 10-year was at 2.8 going to what thought was 2.7, people sold them on the same news as the last quarter. Now they're buying them, and I maintain again that the banks are the cheapest, the best place to be.
Yes, JP Morgan, Citi, and Goldman all up this morning.
Right, and there's key names for action alerts, and they're just way too cheap. They got down to 12 for JP Morgan, 10 for Citi, and you could argue 8 for Goldman, and that is extraordinary. I mean, you have to go down to like Ford Motor and GM to find stocks that are as cheap. And by the way, I want to emphasize that retail fell down, and I think the retail quarters are going to be good.
And Jim, we'll get your take on Amazon and Facebook's earnings from last week on our ActionAlertsPlus.com video. That's right after this.
Right.
You mentioned Caterpillar earlier, though. That's Real Money's stock of the day.
Right. And Caterpillar's one, and I have not been on the call yet, so understand we're going to have wall-to-wall coverage as we do for every stock of the day. And if you really want to know stock of the day on fundamentals, on technicals, we are the place to go. We do a SWOT team analysis once a day of a stock. I would point out that Caterpillar, if you remember the previous quarter, the CFO and then the IR repeated the notion that you're at peak margins. So what we have to do is we have to stay very close to the situation. I will review the call, review the quarter, talk about it, hopefully write about it in Real Money, and talk about it tonight on Mad Money.
And you mentioned the technicals. Bruce Kamich out with an article this morning on the technicals of Caterpillar. So Please go to Real Money for that.
And again, I glossed over retail. Retail's inexpensive. Bob Pisani said as much today. And then don't forget oil back at 70. We own BP, Cimarex, Anadarko. Anadarko and BP report. And BP at yields 5. What can I say? It's all right. But I don't really care for the market here because when you have a dramatic revision in a major stock like Facebook, it sows confusion, and confusion then breeds selling.
Although, Jim, also last week, President Trump striking some trade concessions.
Yeah, no, I think Larry Kudlow, advised us that delivering alpha this could happen. Obviously, he wouldn't have done so unless he was involved in it. And I think that's why the money rotated to the industrials, Ingersoll Rand being the best example. But also, we'll talk about it in our Action Alerts video, 3M. And 3M was a very courageous stand to that stock. And we'll have some more about that in our special video only for subscribers. So stock of the day, Real Money. But subscribers, if you want my comments on the drilled down comments on some really key industrials.
Jim, we should highlight Advanced Micro Devices. You had Lisa Su on back in April when the stock was at 11.
Yeah, I mean, Lisa, I always call her Dr. Sue, and she just gets tired of that. Lisa's cut from a different cloth from the Stanford, Caltech people. She's from MIT. She did exactly how you really execute a turnaround. You start by fixing the balance sheet, and then you go after the key markets where you feel that other companies are vulnerable, like Intel, which no one really thought was vulnerable, and then you flood the zone there. You flood the zone in data center, and then you flood the zone in gaming. And she has the chips that people want. She's done a remarkable job. Those who doubted her are dead wrong.
And Lisa Su spoke to TheStreet's Eric Johnson in an article.
Eric Johnson has been the best reporter on AMD. So if you want to know anything about AMD, you got to read Johnson. It's Johnsa.
And Jim, before we go, we should point out CBS, of course, the allegations against Les Moonves.
This is a tough one. Anybody who has worked for Les, we all have great stories about Les, so no. Let me back up and say this right. There are those of us who worked for him and never saw this side that was documented by New Yorker, and we feel sad. We wanted him. My wife's on the board of Bucknell, and he spoke a couple years ago. Commencement is very eloquent. He was a graduate of Bucknell. And then there's people who are just angry. Angry, obviously. If you were one of the women who is interviewed, you should be furious, and all women I think when you read that, we'll be furious, and all men should be furious. So I'm sad and angry. I've known Les since a fantasy league that I was in, literally decades ago. And I worked for him for CBS Radio and for Simon and Schuster, and he was always fabulous to me. But again, I'm not the kind of person that was being written about. That's not the kind of reporting. So I was stunned. Now, David, my partner, said those who are in the know were not stunned, but I was stunned, and I don't know how else to say it. I was stunned.
And Jim, it's a sad story. We are a market show, and we should point out the stocks of both companies, CBS and Viacom, are down.
Yeah, and CBS is under $20 billion. I remember when Netflix was under $20 billion. You could argue that CBS stock is cheap here. I'll argue that it's cheap, but this is stunning, and I don't know how he survives. I just don't know how. We're in a very different world. It's just a different world. I don't know how he survives.
Okay, we'll keep watching that one, Jim. Who do you have coming up on Med Money tonight?
I got Lam Research. Lam's incredibly important, and the reason it is because the semiconductors are the true battleground right now, and they make semiconductor equipment, everything from what Micron does, Intel, NXP. Everybody uses a Lam. Lam's the best, arguably the best. Applied Materials the other. And I've got to do more on the quarter ahead, obviously, than when I speak to Martin Ansys. And then a terrific insurer that everybody knows is terrific, which is Chubb. My own insurer. People swear by them. I swear by them. And we'll speak to Evan Cramer about how that quarter was really a great quarter.
Okay, we'll be watching tonight, 6 p.m. Eastern on CNBC. Meanwhile, Jim and I are going to continue talking about stocks on ActionAlertsPlus.com. Please join us there.